Well, to shift gears a little bit, I'd like to bring up our topic of the day, which is going to be DWIs. And I know that's kind of what I've always known you for, is that and other areas of criminal law in this area. And kind of the question I get from a lot of my friends sometimes is, well, what do I do if I've been drinking and I get pulled over? Do you have any generalized advice about that situation?
Generally, with DWI, and I always get this whenever I'm out, whether I played golf with everybody and we had a beer, what do I do if I ever get pulled over? Well, it is legal to have something to drink and to drive, but not too much. But I always say be polite. When you see blue lights, what I recommend is pull over as quickly as possible, put your turn signal on. Officers are looking for different clues of impairment. One clue is, did you respond properly for the blue lights? That's the first thing they're looking for. If you've been out drinking at a restaurant or playing golf, don't get on your phone to text. You can't do it anyways, but don't do that, because officers are looking for lane violations before they put on their blue lights. They're looking for somebody speeding, is what they're looking for. When you get pulled over and the officer is in his car, don't jump out of your car. I've had somebody jump out of his car like this. I mean, you stay in your car, get your documents ready. One thing that the
What documents are you talking about?
When the police officers come up, they're typically going to ask for your driver's license and your registration. Sometimes they only ask for your driver's license, but one reason they're asking for the two different documents is because they're doing a divided attention test. Typically, we're going to have our driver's license in our wallet. We have our registration in either in our console or our glove compartment up here. So they're looking to see if you can do two different things. That's what I call the first divided attention test that they give you. They're also going to ask you, have you been drinking? One thing today is, today walking into your office, I saw several people wearing masks. I was at the bank, people were wearing a mask. Will people be wearing a mask? Will that be part of our garb that we wear every day? So one thing is, if the officer pulls you over and you have been drinking, I'd probably say, keep your mask on, okay?
That's a good point. And that question, the have you been drinking, it's kind of I guess like a catch-22, because if you say yes, then I imagine you're opening the door to further testing and field sobriety, and it can be used against you in court. But then if you say no, you certainly don't want to lie to a police officer in an investigation. Is there any tips you have for how to handle that question?
There's no good answer there. Here's why I say that. You say no when you smell like alcohol, or you blow into a breathalyzer and then there's a number that they see, but they can only say you're positive for alcohol. They say that's what a drunk does, okay? If you say yes, the next question is how much. You're not under oath. I don't admit that you say, I had 18, I don't. I would tell you, if you are going to talk about you had drinks or beers, don't call them whiskey, shots, Jaeger bombs. I would not use that kind of language when talking to the police officer. I've had experience with high octane beers, things like that. Those are language not to use when talking to the police officer.
What about just saying you'd rather not get into it, or you don't want to answer that question?
You can respectfully decline to answer that question. I've given that advice before. What I see is I try a lot of the cases here, and I will have probable cause motions, and if I win my probable cause motion, high five, we leave, you win, no further evidence comes in. When our judges are typically listening to the answers there, that respectfully declining, I don't know if that's going to go well. I think they understand you can have something and drink and drive down the road. That's not illegal, and I think you could say yes, a couple. I don't think that, or you could say respectfully decline everything. I think if you're going to decline everything right up. But when it comes to blowing at the station, it's very important how you handle that. And we'll get to that when.
Sure. And so, because I guess there's, the way I understand it, you get pulled over, and then you'll have a exchange with the officer, typically kind of demonstrating your documents, probably ask about have you been drinking, if so, how much, and then from there it can escalate to breathalyzer alongside the road. Am I using the right term for that?
Correct. Let me take you back to when you were talking about the drinking part. You said about the question and the answering of that, have you been drinking or not? I always say to my clients, I say, really, the answer to that be like if I was in the military and my sergeant said, is my wife pretty? There's no good answer to that. I'm doing push-ups regardless how I answer that question. So that's when I say about the yes or no or should you respectfully decline. I don't know if I was in that situation. I've never been in that situation, what I would do, but I may say a couple of beers. If I honestly had a couple of beers, I think that would be because I'll tell you, though, from there what I wouldn't do. I would not do the field test.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that kind of brings my point, because I guess if you've really had one or two, then you're probably going to be fine depending on your weight and how recent it was. You're probably going to be fine with respect to the legal limit. But if you've had 5 or 6, do you want to say I've had 1 or 2? Because one, you're misleading an officer potentially, and then second, it's probably your smell may not be consistent with 1 or 2 drinks.
Yeah. Here's the problem with that. Even if you've had 5 or 6 beers, if it's been over a long period of time, you may not be over a .08. Okay, you may not be appreciably impaired. But the problem we have is most police officers will ask you, been drinking? How much? They never ask you, when was your last beer? When was your last drink? That becomes problematic when you blow into their handheld devices. They don't get the information, because if you just drank a beer and you left, say, Portland Grill from here, and I'm pulled over on Eastwood, and the first thing they're asking me to do is blow into a breathalyzer, and I just had a drink, I could blow a 15 and had 1 beer because I have mouth alcohol. So the problem that we have when you get into, say you said you had 5 or 6, is typically they're not going to ask you when did you have those. If I was in that situation and trying to be totally honest, had 5 or 6 over a long period of time, I would add those details, because that's going to be important. I hate having my client testify in DWIs. Hopefully they've explained everything while they're on the side of the road that doesn't hurt us, and I'll go with that.